In this movie, we're going to talk about subcategories. Subcategories are a feature that allow you to have global control over various settings across multiple families. Now, they can be a very powerful feature. It can also sometimes be a double-edged sword if you're not used correctly. So working here in a simple file, let's take a look at the subcategory feature. In this file, I have just some doors from the out-of-the-box content. Double door and a single door, and a few other examples here. Each of these doors has some common components. They all have panels, they all have door swings. And if we zoom in a little bit on these doors, what you notice is that each one has a panel and a door swing, and the panel in each case is slightly darker than the swing is, even though this is a family called double flush, this one's a family called double uneven, and this one over here is a family called single flush. Now, each of these families uses the subcategory feature to control those internal subcomponents. The best way I can show you this is to take a look at the visibility graphics dialog. So I'm going to type VG. That's going to open up visibility graphics, and we see a list of all the built-in categories in Revit. Now, next to each category, there's a little plus sign. And if I expand that, we see any subcategories that belong to that category. And the list of subcategories that we see for doors is a pretty logical list that's pretty self-explanatory. Most doors have an elevation swing. Most doors have some sort of a frame or possibly some glass or a panel or a plan swing. And what you see is that each of these items has been given a subcategory, and then furthermore, those subcategories have been assigned various settings like projection line and cut line and so on. And we can even turn those subcategories on and off. So the easiest way I can illustrate to you the benefit of the subcategory is to simply turn off the plan swing, click OK, and then back here in the drawing, we notice that all the swings have turned off even though they're scattered across several different families. If we didn't use the subcategory feature, we would have to build in some sort of a visibility parameter into each separate family and then control each family independently. The subcategory gives us the global control to do it across all of them, except for this guy over here, right? This one's throwing us a little bit of a curveball. We've got this dashed line over here, which I would assume would have been plan swing. Let's take a look, VG. It turns out that that one's been assigned to the elevation swing subcategory. Now that seems a little odd to me in a plan drawing, and therein lies the challenge that we have with subcategories. Despite everyone's best intentions to make things more flexible, more universal, and more global, if they're not planned out very carefully, you can get into problems. You can have redundant subcategories. You can have categories that aren't named very well. And so this gets into the realm of CAD standards and BIM standards and being very careful about the way that we assign these things. And it's even more acute when you look at some of the categories that aren't quite so obvious or aren't quite so easy to define. Doors are pretty easy to define, but what about specialty equipment? Well, if we looked at master spec, we would find that specialty equipment includes a whole host of things. Kitchen equipment, ladders, fire extinguishers, protective coverings, you name it, all falls under specialty equipment. The challenge we have is if manufacturers of each of these kinds of items create their own subcategories for each of their types of equipment, we could end up with a very long list. Furthermore, if they don't agree on what to call those things, we could end up with not only a long list, but we could end up with a long list with a lot of inconsistencies. So for example, if I were a manufacturer and I wanted to create such a subcategory, how would I do it? Well, I can access the Object Styles dialog either from the Manage tab on the ribbon or directly right here from VG. That will give me the same list of categories. Looks a little different. Scroll down. Here's specialty equipment. I select it, and then I click the new subcategory button over here. Give my new subcategory a name. For example, earlier in the training series, we began creating our awning family, which we're going to look at further in later chapters. That would be under protective covers in the master spec. So if I'm the manufacturer for that piece of equipment, I might want to create that subcategory. I just simply click OK there. And now I have that subcategory. I could assign a line weight to it, a color, line pattern, even a default material. So these are all the default settings for that subcategory. When I click OK, you'll now see it listed here in the VG dialog for each view. And then it would be up to me to assign the components in the families to that subcategory. So when managed carefully, Subcategories can offer a level of control not easily attained through other methods, but do, however, exercise caution and restraint when creating and maintaining them, and just talk it over with your team and make sure that you're following a clear and concise and consistent CAD/BIM standard.